You really are oblivious, aren't you? The inheritance, the inheritance. Hurry up and hand it over already. As soon as she opened the front door, my sister-in-law, Amy, barged in, cheerfully blabbering at her own pace. We were never close, so her sudden concern bewildered me. If it weren't for Tom's inheritance, I wouldn't come near such a gloomy place. Indeed, for her, dressed from head to toe in glittering clothes and accessories, the contrastingly gloomy house of her brother Tom and his wife, me, must have seemed dreary. However, I found Amy, who didn't even bother to pay her respects at her brother's altar and brought up the inheritance right at the entrance, to be far more insidious. Her attitude wasn't new. She was arrogant about her appearance and used to bully her meek husband. After he started doing well and earning a considerable income, her attitude changed, and she became clingy, or so my husband had told me. I was disgusted by her cold-heartedness, not visiting her brother during his repeated hospital stays and not shedding a single tear at his funeral. I had decided to cut ties with her, but her greed for money wouldn't allow it. Come on, I don't have all day. You must be busy too, right, Gabby? Amy, eyes sparkling unbecomingly for her age, was convinced she would receive the inheritance. But I had something that would shatter her belief entirely, the last words from my late husband. Read this, and you'll understand everything. I am Gabby, widowed in my mid-60s, leading a modest life without unnecessary luxuries. About a month ago, I lost my beloved husband to a long-standing illness. We met and married in our 40s, so we had no children. Having supported each other for 20 years, the loss was immense. I wondered if there was any point in continuing to cook for someone when there were no children. The thought of following my husband in death crossed my mind, but I lacked the courage. Moreover, my husband often told me, "No matter what happens to me, live on without faltering. You are a strong, independent woman." I couldn't ignore my husband's words, which now served as his will. After his death, my life changed drastically. I was busy with funeral arrangements right after his passing, which, in a way, saved me from dwelling too much on my grief. Thanks to my sister and many others who supported me, I managed to get through the tumultuous month. Although my memory of that time is vague, my sister told me later, "You did an admirable job as the chief mourner. Tom must be resting easy in heaven." The funeral saw far more attendees than I had anticipated. My husband had been a high-ranking executive at a nationally renowned company, so many unknown faces were expected. Colleagues praised my husband's character, and some had even flown in from overseas branches, sharing stories of their outings. Although I couldn't spend much time with each visitor, I made sure to send proper thanks later, meticulously recording names and addresses for return gifts. With the support of my sister and her husband, I can finally breathe a sigh of relief. Thinking back on my husband's gentle nature fills me with immense gratitude. While I'm proud to have been surrounded by such wonderful people, Amy's presence casts a shadow over these memories. Despite being significantly younger, Amy stood out in our neighborhood for her youthful appearance and high beauty standards. She enjoyed her beauty, which in itself wasn't a problem. Even though she is 58 years old and not young by any means, I sometimes think I shouldn't be wearing miniskirts and showing off my bare legs anymore. But I don't really care what others think about that. The problem is that she always finds a way to insult me. I'm not as pretty as she is, and I don't have the same enthusiasm for yoga or going to the spa. Gabby, you always look so dowdy. Don't you feel embarrassed coming from the countryside? Tom is wealthy, why didn't he marry someone more beautiful? Whenever we meet, she immediately starts with her insults and scrutinizes what I'm wearing as if appraising it. Wearing a bag from an unknown brand at your age, what's that about? And those shoes, how long have you been wearing them? You had those last time we met, didn't you? It's easy for me to tell when someone is sloppy because even if their clothes are decent, their accessories reveal their lack of taste. doesn't Tom buy you anything? He doesn't care about material things, so if you asked, he would buy them, wouldn't he? I have enough bags and shoes, but not as many as Amy does. It might be considered sloppy, but I'm naturally not inclined to buy a lot. In fact, I make it a point to throw away at least one old item whenever I purchase something new, so my home tends to be quite minimalist. For our anniversary or my birthday, when my husband asked what I wanted, I always opted for planning a trip. Objects can be bought anytime, but memories are priceless and irreplaceable, in my opinion. Now that my husband is gone, I'm glad I made those choices. Even indirectly hinting at such sentiments when Amy insults me, she would just snort in derision. Tom wasn't exactly handsome, so in that sense, you're a good match, aren't you? But the fact that you married such a man must mean you were after his money, right? No matter what insult she throws at me, she always ends with this. This is the issue I have with Amy's behavior. She has convinced herself and tells our relatives that I married my husband for his money. There were indeed many women who tried to get close to him for that purpose. My husband didn't gamble or go out at night, his only hobby was fishing, so I was surprised by how much he had saved when we got married. But I never thought of splurging his money. At the time, I had been working at the same company for 20 years since I graduated and had a decent amount of savings myself, not as much as him, but substantial. Our shared value of not spending much was one of the reasons we got married, contrary to what Amy claims. I've explained this to Amy several times and asked her to correct the misunderstanding among our relatives, but she never listens to me. She seems to have unilaterally decided that our personalities do not match and constantly finds reasons to clash with me. Amy has always been competitive, and my husband tried to avoid her as much as possible when he was alive. Perhaps that's why she hardly helped with the funeral arrangements. Though I was the chief mourner, she never once offered words of encouragement or sympathy when my husband began to fall ill or was decided to be hospitalized, despite my repeated calls. At one point, she even got angry and said, "Don't contact me for every little thing." So, I decided it was best not to inform her about anything related to my husband's health. However, I didn't want to worry my husband, so I would tell him that his sister was concerned about him, even though it was a kind lie. In the end, she never showed up in front of my husband until his passing, and even at the wake, she acted as if she was there reluctantly. Yet, the relatives around her would say, "She's been so upset since hearing about her brother's illness that she's lost her appetite and cried every day to the point of no tears left. That's why she looks so down." She said she couldn't visit the hospital because she didn't want to see Tom in a weakened state. When I heard this, I felt an indescribable frustration combined with the shock of losing my husband, and tears welled up. Amy, portrayed as a tragic heroine, did not look like someone who had lost her appetite. There were no tear streaks or swollen eyes. Despite telling me not to contact her, she seemed meek in front of the relatives. If my sister hadn't skillfully taken me away from that situation, I might have lost my composure and shouted at the relatives. Realizing Amy is self-centered and incapable of showing respect even to the deceased, I decided to minimize contact with her as much as possible. I've been sorting through my husband's belongings little by little while managing work and household tasks, and at the same time, trying to mend my heart. At first, every time I disposed of one of my husband's items, it felt like a memory was being erased, but I reassured myself that the memories with my husband are etched in my heart more than anything. While cherishing the moments with those who come to pay respects at the altar, I've been trying to return to my peaceful life. Then, as expected, it was Amy who shattered those days. She pressed the doorbell and rattled the front door. "Gabby, I know you're there. Open up, your sister has come all this way." Though I've never considered this person my sister, Amy raises her voice as if to announce her presence to the neighbors. The lights are on inside, and now, pretending not to be home is not an option. "What have you been doing?" You made me wait so long I almost got sunburned. As soon as I unlock the door, before I can say anything, Amy barges in. She shoves a shopping bag from a famous international brand into my hands and starts taking off her coat. What's this all of a sudden? Struggling to find the words, I finally speak up, only to be met with an exaggerated sigh from her. You know, I've been so busy, I couldn't visit. I thought you might be feeling down all by yourself, so I brought you something nice. Saying that, she snatches back the bag she handed me and, standing right there, pulls out its contents. Accessories, perfume, and luxury baked goods, none of which seem fitting for me at this moment. Does she really think I'll be overjoyed to receive these? And today, Amy is unnaturally kind. I know I've been harsh to you in the past, but you were the wife chosen by my only brother. I didn't want his inheritance to go to some greedy woman. But seeing you at the funeral, I realized you were different. Only someone who truly loved Tom could cry like that and give a speech with disheveled hair, ignoring what others might think. Even when trying to flatter me, she can't help but comment on my appearance and actions. Yet, her gaze towards me is filled with what seems like respect and passion. Confused by Amy's sudden change in attitude, I still stand there, at a loss for words, while she continues to shower me with praises. Feeling increasingly suffocated by the presence of someone whose true thoughts are unknown to me, I gently say, I'm sorry. I haven't settled Tom's belongings yet. It's not a good time to have guests over, but maybe you could at least say hi to Tom? Her eyes narrow, and she returns to her usual cold gaze, shouting, You really are clueless. Did you think I came here just to see your dreary faces? I'm here for the inheritance. Isn't that obvious to anyone? Excuse me? Confused by Amy's money gesture, I'm at a loss. How long do you think I've been waiting? I know roughly how much Tom earned, so I have a pretty good idea of how much I should get from his estate. You can't just swindle me out of it. Hurry up and give it to me. If you're planning to deceive me, I'll call a lawyer and the police, you know? There's no deception. Everything regarding the estate is being handled by a lawyer. Don't play dumb. Half of that inheritance is mine. It's supposed to be split between you and me, right? As she shouts with her face turning red, I tilt my head in confusion. The lawyer had explained that normally, siblings of the deceased are entitled to a quarter of the estate, divided further if there are more siblings. Since Tom had only one sister, she would normally receive a quarter. Tom had always lamented over this, given that from a young age Amy mocked his looks and, along with parents who favored her for her beauty, bullied him. To prove them wrong, Tom excelled in his studies, worked his way through National University with scholarships and part-time jobs, and climbed the corporate ladder in a major company. He had led a challenging life until then. Unsurprisingly, the thought of her receiving any part of his inheritance troubled him. I had encouraged him to decide for himself, and only after his passing did I learn his decision. Now, completely changing her tune, Amy rants. For a wife to take almost all the inheritance, you must be as greedy for money as they come. I always thought it suspicious for someone to marry such a plain man past 40. There's only one reason to spend your life with someone whose only attribute is his wealth. Listening to you talk about love and shared values was just a bunch of nonsense. Hand over half of what you got, and I'll disappear. Her sweet words and gifts were all a ploy to extract my husband's wealth. Having always been antagonistic towards me, I had suspected there might be ulterior motives. Yelling in the entrance where my husband's altar stands, she showcases a profound lack of morality. I wonder what my husband, listening quietly from heaven, might think. I tell Amy to wait and decide to show her a document. Hearing that, Amy's eyes lit up instantly, spouting nonsensical things like, "Gabby, you really do understand. Let's go have some fancy French cuisine with that money next time." I didn't respond to her pace and brought out the document from the back room to hand it to her. "Please, this is from Tom. You can have it." What I handed her was Tom's last letter, his will. Realizing what it was, she quickly unfolded the paper and scanned through it. Her eyebrows moved up and down, clearly showing her agitation as she absorbed the content. "What does this mean?" I didn't know anything about this. Her ignorance was her own fault for never making an effort to see Tom. Words were on the tip of my tongue, but they likely wouldn't reach her, already deflated and slumped from the shock. The will stated that Tom was leaving all his assets to me as a final gesture of gratitude for the peaceful and fulfilling life we shared, supporting each other physically and emotionally. It contained such passionate words that I was embarrassed to read aloud. Reading it, I was moved to tears again, knowing that Tom thought of me even while battling his illness, ensuring not a single penny would go to his sister. The answer was clear, but Amy, unable to accept reality, stared into the void, muttering, "What does this mean?" After turning pale, Amy was unresponsive to anything I could say, so I somewhat forcefully escorted her out and locked the door. Through the door's glass, I saw her shadow sway and stagger away. Feeling secure that there would be no further trouble after reading the will, my peace was short-lived as Amy called the next day. "I never thought Gabby could be so wicked. You deceived me." Her fury was palpable even over the phone, sending shivers down my spine. But I had done nothing wrong and certainly didn't deserve to be slandered. Before I could retort, she cut me off. "Thinking you've got the upper hand now? Well, too bad, because you're about to experience real pain. You've angered me, and I won't forgive you even if you beg." Though I barely grasped her reference to inheritance, her implications about my suffering and begging were utterly lost on me. My silence, mistaken for fear, only fueled her to laugh louder. "See? It's too late for apologies. I'd love to see your face now, but I'm busy meeting with my lawyer." Her triumphant tone puzzled me further. Why she felt the need to consult a lawyer or inform me about it was beyond understanding. Instead of bothering me, she could continue her usual routines of yoga or spa treatments. "I can't believe you don't see the situation. Talking to you just frustrates me, it's bad for my beauty. I'm not satisfied with the estate division and am preparing to sue. Whatever covert talks you and your husband had, a wife monopolizing the inheritance is absurd and against the law. You think showing me Tom's will would silence me? Misusing your sick husband for personal gain shows you lack a conscience. I have every right to my share of the inheritance, and I will claim it." Believing I had manipulated Tom into writing the will, she was determined to fight. But I couldn't stay silent any longer. "Your efforts will be in vain." That will was directly handed to the lawyer by Tom himself. I read it afterwards, and there was no trickery. "Plus, you have no claim to the inheritance, according to the lawyer. So, it might be best if you didn't waste your time." Her anger only intensified at my calm explanation. "How dare you act so smug? This calmness is temporary. I'm serious. I've been calling repeatedly, and finally secured a meeting with the lawyer. They understand my determination and are on my side, capable of extracting compensation from you." With a villainous parting line, she hung up. Her reasoning for calling, assuming I'd be rattled by the mention of a lawyer, was unfathomable. Her relentless pursuit, despite receiving nothing from her brother, felt almost admirable in its tenacity. Months passed without incident, and I managed to sort through Tom's study, filled with belongings. Gradually packing up, I left the house filled with our memories, moving on from the place we once called home. Hoping to fulfill my late husband's wish of living in a quiet suburban house upon retirement, I sold our old home and land. With that money as a down payment, I moved to an area where my sister and her husband live. Although it was regrettable that we couldn't make this move while my husband was still alive, our dog Maya, who had been with us for over 10 years, seemed delighted with the new house. To prevent her from straining her legs on the slippery flooring, I even bought a light-colored carpet. Selling the house meant fewer possessions, but the prospect of gradually making our new space comfortable gave me something to look forward to. Still, the strange sensation of my husband's absence persisted, amplified by the sparse furnishings. With little to do when Maya was asleep, I often found myself lost in thought, though I knew dwelling on sadness wasn't beneficial. One day, my smartphone's loud ring cut through my daze, waking me from a half-sleep during a TV drama. Without checking the caller, I answered. "So, you're determined to bring me down, you plague." The caller was Amy. Her abrupt yelling instantly dispelled any remaining drowsiness, though her reasons remained unclear. She continued without waiting for my response. "It's your fault I'm getting a divorce. Because there's no inheritance coming." What? Though her accusation was absurd, I had a guess at her meaning. She likely told her husband that she would receive a portion of my husband's estate, and their relationship soured when that fell through. The fragility of their marriage, breaking down over financial issues, was not my burden to bear. "Won't you even apologize?" "Your fault I can't live anymore." "What am I supposed to do all alone?" "Why don't you work? You're still young in your 50s. She fell silent at my calm reply, whether due to irritation at being told to work or at being reminded of her age. Either way, it was high time she faced reality. If you were living on your husband's salary, you shouldn't need an inheritance. Why the divorce? He was after Tom's wealth from the start. If your brother's inheritance isn't coming, you're useless. All you have is your looks and the money you were supposed to bring. Decades together, wasted. I want my time back." That's what he said. He was furious. Why do I have to take the blame? He's a pathetic man with a low salary. I want my time back too. I had met Amy's husband during our marriage introduction and saw him annually at New Year gatherings. Like Amy, he preferred flashy brand name clothes, accessories, and sports cars, leaving an impression of frivolity. Her mention of his low salary suggested they had long been pressuring my husband for money, likely spending their income recklessly. Given their extravagant tastes, it was clear they lived beyond their means, relying on others' wealth. Marrying Amy, who was known for her spendthrift and selfish behavior, was his own doing. I even went to a lawyer, but was turned away. They said I had no inheritance coming. Everyone's against me. But I blame you the most. If it weren't for you, none of this would have happened. Despite my advice, she sought legal counsel, only to face embarrassment. "Gabby, you brainwashed my husband, didn't you? He said he should have married someone like you. Why does your name come up in his complaints? Were you seducing him behind my back? How did you come to that conclusion? I don't even have your husband's contact info." Lies. My husband has never praised a dowdy woman like you before. You must have seduced him and had an affair. Confess, and I might forgive you if you give me the inheritance. What? This conversation is pointless. Confronted with baseless accusations and irrational demands, I was left speechless by her delusion and refusal to face reality. Exasperated by Amy's baseless accusations, I gave up on the conversation and hung up the phone. The house we had lived in was already being demolished, and the land had found a buyer, so there was nothing left for anyone to confront me about. Naturally, I hadn't shared my new address, so the likelihood of us meeting again was almost non-existent. Just to be safe, I immediately set up a call block, deciding to seek peace of mind once more. Half a year passed, and Maya, our family dog, and I had settled nicely into our new life. My sister and her husband and I would dine out once or twice a month, enjoying fulfilling days together. Occasionally, at my sister's suggestion, we would dine in the room where my husband's altar was placed, which I believe made him happy too. Thanks to regular checkups, my recent health screening showed no issues, and the area had plenty of convenient stores, leaving me with little to worry about in my daily life. The only slightly troubling incident in the past few months was a call from the municipal office. Amy, having divorced and with no savings, thus penniless, had applied for social welfare. However, she was informed that if she had relatives who could support her, she wouldn't qualify for assistance. It seemed that all the relatives who once adored and supported her unanimously declared they couldn't provide any assistance, likely knowing her history of extravagance all too well. As a result, she became isolated from her family. Eventually, the municipal office contacted me through their representative, but naturally, I had no intention of taking her in. Had she and my husband been close during his lifetime, perhaps I would have considered it. But given that she and her former husband had approached me solely for money and didn't behave respectfully even at the funeral, I felt no obligation to help her now. Despite her accusations of me being greedy for money, it was she who had drowned in her desires. I wish she would reflect on her life and make amends. As for what became of her, I haven't kept up. Rumors suggest she caused trouble at the first job she found and quickly resigned, or that her neighbors noticed her ex-husband's absence, deducing a divorce and subsequent move. Whether these stories were true or not, no one seemed to know her whereabouts or how she was managing, and frankly, I lost interest over time. Having regained peace of mind, I cherished my moments with Maya even more. Maya, always a calm dog much like my husband, became quieter with age, which worried me. My sister, a dog lover, seemed to grow fond of Maya and one day announced she had adopted a puppy. Excited, I visited my sister's house and was greeted by a tiny chihuahua. Maya's eyes sparkled at the sight of the puppy, happily watching as the little one bounced around. Hoping this new friend would bring joy to Maya, I watched them play, feeling a warm sense of contentment.
Grandma, it's cold. Please let me in. In the deep of a midwinter night, I was surprised by my granddaughter's sudden visit. Dad and Mom said they don't need a daughter who failed her high school entrance exams. Clad in her tattered uniform and with tears filling her eyes, she threw herself into my arms. Those people. I'll never forgive them. I'll deal with them myself. Normally gentle and quiet, my husband clenched his fists. His face contorted with anger as if he were a demon. And then, he handed me a piece of paper he had written something on. We have to put on the performance of a lifetime now. I answered with a wink to my husband. My name is Evelyn. I am a 65-year-old housewife, living a modest life as an early elderly pensioner. Having worked as a clerical worker at a transport company for over 40 years, I found myself bewildered by what to do with my newfound free time. My husband, 5 years my senior, and I married through work. Our relationship started from being a driver and a clerical worker. And we got together with the blessings of our colleagues. I was naive and always pleasant. I was flattered by the attention from the drivers, calling me a Madonna. And my colleagues were worried I would never refuse anyone's invitation. Just then, I encountered a dangerous situation, and my husband saved me. Standing tall at 5'9" with a sturdy build, he threw the man aside. Yelling, "I'll deal with this," and barked, "Stop smiling at every man indiscriminately. I will protect you." It was an overly dramatic line. But I fell for the manliness of my usually quiet and reserved husband, and I accepted his proposal. 40 years have passed since. My husband, who retired at the same time as I did, remains quiet and not very entertaining. But his expression brightens up when watching reruns of period Western TV shows. I love his subtle smile. It seems to be a warm spring day today. Shall we go see Sophia's face? One spring morning. Looking at the weather forecast in the newspaper, my husband suddenly suggested. Sophia is our eldest son's daughter, our precious first granddaughter. Unfortunately, we can't see Sophia until we get the okay from my son and his wife. Perhaps my husband had forgotten that Sophia was taking exams this year. I sighed and wiped my hands on my apron as I replied. It's only a 30-minute drive to see her, and I wish we could see our granddaughter more often. We used to visit as a family of 3 at least once a month until Sophia was in elementary school. And dining out with our son's family of 5 was our joy. My son Chris, his wife Tracy, and Sophia would all wave goodbye with a smile, saying, "We'll come again." However, once she started elementary school, busy with cram school and club activities, she rarely showed her face. I regretted not living together, but it was too late. Our son, putting work first, built a house near his wife's parents' house. Right after retiring, I called Tracy's mobile, wanting to see Sophia. "Mother, aren't you being a bit selfish? Just because you've retired and have free time, you want us to come over. You prioritized your work when we needed you the most, didn't you? Plus, Sophia is taking her high school exams this year. She doesn't have time to play. Please don't call us anymore." I was speechless. And to my apology, Tracy retorted. "Sophia is aiming for a super prestigious elite school. She's excellent. We absolutely need her to pass." "I see. But I think putting too much pressure on her might not be good. Education isn't everything, you know." To my hard-fought words, Tracy bluntly replied, "What are you even saying? You and your husband didn't have an education. So you had to work hard all your life, right? I don't want Sophia to go through that. I want her to go to an elite high school, graduate from an elite university, and marry into an elite family. Does Chris think the same?" I asked, worried about my granddaughter's future and what my son thought. I didn't think he would force that on their daughter because of his parents' lack of education. My husband shares the same view. Let me be clear. He regrets being born to parents who lost in the parental lottery, feeling like a loser in life. What? So, please don't contact us until Sophia's exam results are out. Abruptly hanging up, I was left in despair. Although busy, I felt guilty for not being able to take my son out more often when he was a child. But being told off like that made me feel sorry for my hardworking husband. And I kept the quarrel with my daughter-in-law a secret until today. It's about time we heard something. Sophia took the exam at a private high school, right? The exams are over. There should have been an announcement by now. Hearing my husband's murmurs while reading the newspaper, I had a bad feeling about the lack of contact. The incident happened that night. Despite the warm daytime, the night was bitterly cold. Waking up to go to the bathroom, I heard someone knocking on the front door as I walked down the cold corridor in my gown. "Huh? Is someone there?" "Grandma, it's Sophia. I'm cold. Please open the door." Sophia? Is that you, Sophia?" At such an unexpected time. I was shocked and opened the door barefoot. "Sophia. What happened?" "Honey." I called my husband with a voice louder than I expected and hugged Sophia. "What happened? You're so cold. Where's your father? Your mother?" Bombarding her with questions, Sophia was too shaken to answer. I quickly took off my gown, wrapped it around Sophia, and lifted her into the house. "Sophia, isn't it? Hey, what happened? Quickly, bring her in front of the fireplace." Alarmed by my frantic call, my husband came to the entrance immediately. "Quick. Take her to the fireplace, quickly." Sophia's limbs wouldn't stop trembling, cold to the touch, her face and lips blue. The chattering of her teeth indicating the severity of the situation. I was told I'm not needed. Sophia managed to squeeze out the words. What do you mean? Dad and Mom said they don't need me, so I left home. Never mind that for now, warm up by the stove first. I'll make you some hot honey ginger milk, just wait. Dear, please turn on the lights quickly. Trying her best to explain her situation was Sophia. I turned on the light and was stunned by her appearance. She was in shambles. Perhaps it was her school uniform. A white blouse and a navy blue pleated skirt. Over it, she only had a gray hoodie. I fell on the way here. It hurts. When I moved Sophia's hand, I saw her tights were torn at the knee. You're hurt. Honey, could you get the first aid kit, please? Do you have any other injuries? Hearing Sophia's injuries, I was shaken. But my husband's voice telling me to calm down reached my ears. Being a truck driver who had witnessed numerous accidents, he was more composed in emergencies. Once you've calmed down, tell us everything that happened. The husband gently urged Sophia to drink the hot milk. As her body warmed up and she looked at our faces, feeling reassured, she began to explain her situation in bits and pieces, crying. I failed my high school entrance exams. I didn't pass. I failed. Dad was disappointed, and Mom was furious. They said I'm not their child anymore, that they don't need me. What? I don't think they meant that seriously. Soothing her crying back, Sophia started to sob. Dad and Mom said they don't need me because I failed to get into the elite high school. The thought that my son and his wife, rather than comforting Sophia, struggling with the pressure and disappointment of failing, told her to leave was monstrous. Furious at the parents' cruel treatment, my body trembled with anger. Looking at my husband, his forehead vein popped, frowning deeply, his fists trembling. This is ridiculous. My heart sank at my husband's shout, resembling the fury he had when he threw a driver harassing me 40 years ago. Grandpa isn't angry at you, Sophia. Are you hungry? You should take a bath now. It's best to warm up and sleep well tonight. Right, let's do that. Sophia, having cried and calmed down, nodded and finally smiled. I intended to call my son immediately to come and pick her up, but my husband stopped me. I'll never forgive them. If we send Sophia back now, they might say the same thing. I have a good idea. I was startled by the smile of my usually quiet and humorless husband. His eyes were too sharp and frightening. What are you planning to do? If he went as far as laying hands on my son, let alone Tracy, it would be terrible. Known to be frightening when angry, I wanted to scold my son too. Thinking of Sophia's tears, but it was crucial to make them apologize first. I'm glad you came to us. To walk all this way. Sophia, you're dear to us. His eyes, sharp until a moment ago, softened with love for his granddaughter. I felt relieved by my rational husband. I want to discuss something with you. I'm thinking of letting Sophia stay with us. Huh? I was taken aback by the unexpected suggestion and looked at my husband. She's our precious granddaughter. The time we couldn't see her must have intensified our love for her. I understood the sentiment but shook my head, thinking it was impractical. I understand how you feel, but that's unreasonable. She still has school, and her parents are just upset because things didn't go as expected. If we contact them tomorrow, they'll come to pick her up immediately. No, nothing would be better than that, I think, though it's just in case. However, though, it's infuriating. It's frustrating to just send Sophia back easily. We have to teach them a lesson. Justice, justice. My husband, a fan of cowboy TV shows, said this and then asked me to prepare paper and pencil, scribbling something to show me. What do you think of this script I wrote? Yes, I think it's good. Our precious granddaughter was treated so horribly. A little payback won't hurt. Let's teach them a proper lesson. I, usually pragmatic, thought there were good lies and bad lies in the world. I wanted to teach my son and his wife a lesson with a bad lie. I guess we have to put on the performance of a lifetime. I answered with a wink. The next morning, after checking that Sophia was sound asleep, I called Tracy. Hello, it's me. Oh, Evelyn, do you need something? Excuse me? I was shocked that Tracy answered so calmly, knowing her precious daughter had been missing since the night before. If there's nothing, I'm going to hang up. I have a headache from a hangover. What? I was speechless, poked by my husband beside me. I took a deep breath and read the lines my husband wrote late at night. Where are you now? At home. Why? It's not just a why. Sophia is in trouble. We just got a call from the police. I think my acting was very convincing, but Tracy, far from being shaken, clicked her tongue lightly and said, Sophia? Oh, she ran off somewhere after failing to get into high school. She's been taken in by the police, hasn't she? Why would they contact you, though? Well, whatever. I have a headache. Could you go pick her up and bring her here? How am I supposed to bring her there? By car, obviously. Tracy, please listen calmly. A car is out of the question. Of course, so are taxis, buses, and trains. She's gone to heaven. The only vehicle for her now would be a hearse. What? Living for 65 years, I felt my blood boil for the first time. I was furious because Tracy, hungover, mentioned that my son Chris hadn't come home last night either. After finishing the conversation with Tracy, my hands were trembling as I dialed my son. Now, it was time to deliver the script written for him. Chris, where are you right now? What's with the call so early in the morning? I'm at work. I just got a call from Tracy. Sophia is in trouble. She said she couldn't reach you, so she contacted me. What kind of trouble? I heard she left home because she was upset about failing her exams. Don't tell me she's at your place? Sorry to bother you, but could you bring her home? That's impossible. It seems only the parents can do the identification. You need to come. Sophia is inside a hearse. What? Stop arguing and come over quickly. We played the performance of our lives. It was a line I hoped never to use again, but it was necessary to discipline them. This was the first step in what my husband called justice. The script my husband prepared had different reactions for Tracy and Chris, and I was impressed by his analytical skills and insight. Both were silenced by shock at my performance. It was their punishment for spending a night without worrying about their daughter's whereabouts. They should suffer until they arrive here. Imagine the pain Sophia must have felt walking all the way to our house. They should feel that pain, no, even greater sorrow. After I finished calling my son and daughter-in-law, Sophia woke up saying she was hungry. Pancakes, bacon, scrambled eggs, and baked potatoes. I served Sophia her favorite dishes, and she ate a lot with the same smile she had as a child. An hour and a half later, Tracy arrived by taxi first, followed by Chris a few minutes later. You're her mother, and you didn't even look for your daughter. What have you been doing since then? And where were you all night? You were probably with that woman again. I was fed up with hearing their argument from the entrance. You two are causing a disturbance. Come inside now. My usually quiet husband's shout made Chris and Tracy shrink back as they bickered their way into the room. Why am I the only one being blamed? You've always left the parenting to me while lying about working and seeing other women. What, as if that's relevant right now? It is relevant. You're such a deadbeat, always cheating. So I wanted to make sure Sophia wouldn't have to marry someone like that. Which is why I wanted her to go to a good high school. What, as if you didn't choose this deadbeat yourself? Yes, I was stupid to choose you. I regret it. Their scuffle didn't stop even inside the room. I was both dismayed and disappointed in my own child and his spouse. Enough from both of you. My husband, fed up, shouted as he entered the room. Shifting blame is disgraceful. Aren't you concerned about Sophia's well-being at all? Faced with my husband's wrathful demeanor, Chris and Tracy looked at each other. Where is Sophia now? Their synchronized response in such a chaotic moment made me laugh dryly. Don't you care about Sophia? Isn't she more important to you than your own lives? Well, that's... Their synchronized response again filled the room with tension. When I thought she was gone, I felt relieved, like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. We've been considering divorce for a while, but Sophia was in the way. Neither of us wanted custody or to pay child support. Shocked by their unbelievable statements, both my husband and I were at a loss for words. A child who failed to get into an elite high school is an embarrassment. I didn't want her anyway, so this worked out. I don't want her either. And let's split Sophia's life insurance money. How could they be so heartless? This was the second time in my life I felt utterly disgusted. I was glad I had asked Sophia to run an errand to the store earlier. She shouldn't have to hear such a conversation. I didn't raise you to be like this. What? Ah. As I approached to hit my son on the head, I screamed in horror at the unexpected turn of events. Are you even fit to be Sophia's parent? You bastard. Despite usually being quiet, my husband raised his voice and slapped my son on the cheek. What are you doing? I'm going to straighten out your attitude. With that, my husband struck again. Eek! My husband, who had never raised his hand before, put all his strength into knocking my son down. Chris, holding his cheek and tearful, looked pitiful. Tracy started trembling next to me, frozen by the sight of her usually quiet and gentle father-in-law taking action. Justice served. After delivering 3 hits to my son and a lighter one to Tracy, my husband smirked and muttered. He must have been waiting to say that line. I'm back. Grandma, I bought pudding and cake. I'll put them in the fridge. Oh, and I took you up on your offer and got some underwear too. Huh? What are Mom and Dad doing? At that moment, Sophia, returning from the convenience store, found her parents and was surprised. Eek! My son and daughter-in-law screamed as if they had seen a ghost. After all, they thought their daughter was no longer of this world. So their reaction was understandable. Sophia, you're alive. It was my turn to silence my ashen-faced son and daughter-in-law. Mom and Dad came because they were worried about you, Sophia. Isn't that nice? Despite their horrendous behavior, I offered them a sliver of hope with my words. I see. But I won't be going back home. Sophia remained calm. What? I'm going to live in this house. What? After I graduate from middle school, I want to attend high school from Grandpa's house. The high school I really want to go to is closer to here. I see. That might be a good idea. Surprised by Sophia's sudden decision, of course, my husband and I welcomed it. Sophia, what are you saying all by yourself? That's right. You're still a minor. We won't allow it. My son and daughter-in-law quickly switched tactics, trying to persuade their daughter. But you both said you didn't need me, right? I was abandoned. Don't say it's up to you. Who do you think raised you to this point? My son became emotional and raised his hand to his daughter. The situation escalated quickly. In an instant, all I could do was hug Sophia, who started crying, while I saw the flames of fury in my husband's eyes. Don't mess around, justice served. For the second time that day, my husband delivered his catchphrase, grabbing my son by the collar and throwing him to the ground. We're no longer parent and child. I'm cutting ties with you, so get out. After scolding my son and daughter-in-law, my husband tenderly said to Sophia, "Don't worry. I will protect Sophia." Seeing my husband's manliness for the first time in 40 years, I fell for him all over again. You wouldn't say that, would you, Evelyn? After all, you've always wanted to see us, right? Tracy, witnessing my husband's declaration of disownment, desperately sought my support. Sorry? I stand by my husband. But if we're disowned, what about Sophia's education expenses? You got a significant retirement payout, right? What? I'm appalled. It seemed my son and daughter-in-law were counting on our retirement savings. I don't mind spending money for my granddaughter, but not for your vanity. I firmly stated my position, and Tracy slumped to the ground, defeated. In the aftermath, my son and daughter-in-law, whose true colors and misdeeds were revealed, fought constantly and eventually divorced. My son, far from repenting, moved in with his affair partner but was kicked out due to the backlash from Tracy's family. Tracy, likely overwhelmed by stress, turned to alcohol during the day and developed a dependency. It was heartbreaking to have such parents, but Sophia excelled, got accepted into her first-choice high school, and soon would be living with us. Shall we go buy a bed, a desk, and curtains for Sophia's room today? My husband eagerly suggests shopping daily, looking forward to life with our granddaughter. Your simple cuisine is delicious, but we should also make various dishes for Sophia. I'll help too. Let's buy some cookbooks. My husband, who had never cooked before, added this to our shopping list. As a couple unsure how to spend our retirement, the prospect of blooming anew filled us with excitement. 3 years later, Sophia graduated high school with honors and was accepted into the medical school of a university in Boston. After I graduate from university, I will definitely come back here. Just think about your happiness, Sophia. Take care of yourself. I held my granddaughter's hand, who was determined to work as a doctor in our town. No matter what, Grandpa is on your side, Sophia. My husband, beaming with pride, supported our granddaughter's dreams, clearly adoring her. Looking at the sunflowers, I pondered our new beginning. After finishing a part-time job I was not accustomed to, I found myself walking down the street at night. The exhaustion had doubled because, during the day, I had been forced to help Tracy, my daughter-in-law who had returned from shopping, with the preparations for a party I couldn't even attend. But it was a celebration for my granddaughter, Amy. And just the thought of Matt being happy as a big brother kept my motivation up. As I passed by the house, I noticed the lights were still on. Looking at the clock, it was already past 9 p.m. It was about time to put Matt to bed. As I looked back at the house with this thought, I saw a sight that made me doubt my eyes. Matt was sitting alone in the garden, staring into the room. Why was Matt outside? Matt. What's wrong? As I rushed over, Matt smiled in relief and then, the next moment, his face crumpled as he began to cry. What happened? Why are you out here alone? Matt, seeming to want to say something, started with an apologetic tone. Today is Amy's birthday. But it's only a celebration for the family. So I'm not allowed to join," he said, sobbing. How could this happen? Unable to bear it, I silently pulled Matt's arm and walked out of the gate. Something that shouldn't have happened had happened again. "You've been outside without eating anything since noon, haven't you? Grandma is tired from work and hungry too. Let's go eat something delicious." I spoke in my usual tone, trying to sound as cheerful as possible to reassure Matt. Sensing something, Matt replied brightly. In the night, leaving Matt alone at our seats in the diner, I stood up from my seat. Pretending to go to the drink corner, I took out my mobile phone. I haven't contacted them in a while, but I wonder if they'll answer. After a few rings, a puzzled voice answered, "Hello?" I introduced myself and said sorry for calling late at night. Then briefly explained the situation Matt was in. The person on the phone said, "I'll come right away," and hung up. After a while, a woman entered the diner. She looked towards the entrance, raised her hand, and then hurried over to our table when she saw us. As Matt looked up at her with a "Who is that?" expression, she embraced him, unable to hold back her tears. "Mom. Is that you? My name is Diane Holmes. I am 57 years old. My husband passed away a year ago, and I live in the house he left behind. Our family consists of my son, his wife, and 2 grandchildren, making us a family of 5. It's a complicated story, but my son Fred is divorced, and Tracy is his second wife. My elder grandchild, Matt, is from Fred's previous marriage, and thus has no blood relation to Tracy and my younger grandchild, Amy. Fred came back to this house with Matt 3 years ago after his first wife cheated on him. At that time, Matt, who was not used to this house, became emotionally unstable, longing for his mother. He was only 2 years old. Seeing Matt like that, I took great care of him. The following year, Fred brought her home. "Mom, I've decided to remarry her," he said, surprising me with the sudden news. I thought he was busy with work, but that was the reason. My own son had been neglecting his emotional instability to have fun. I was so appalled that I couldn't say anything to my own son. Also, she's pregnant. I was further shocked by this news. "It might be sudden, but please take care of us. How can we kick them out knowing she's pregnant? Besides, the house is big and has spare rooms, so we thought we'd live here. That's okay, right?" What a presumptuous attitude. But how could I have thrown them out knowing there was a child in her belly? And so, life with my son, his wife, and the grandchildren began. I didn't know what Fred's first wife was like since I lived far away. But Tracy didn't do much housework. I saw her getting along with Matt, so she must not be a bad daughter-in-law. However, using pregnancy as an excuse, she left all the housework to me. Honestly, since I was working part-time, I had hoped she would help a little with the housework. But she always had an excuse, saying, "I have severe morning sickness," or "My stomach hurts." Having been pushed into a corner, I couldn't force the issue. She seemed like she was in good health. But I understood that the hardships of pregnancy vary from person to person. It feels like I'm being burdened with too much. Despite this, my husband, who always lent a sympathetic ear, was no longer around. "If she says she's suffering, you should be more understanding. These days, no one appreciates a harsh mother-in-law. Rather than such a thing, is dinner ready yet?" I had tried talking to Fred about it once, but he just brushed my concerns aside. "Sorry to bother you with such a thing, being disappointed." I endured the heavy burden of these days. During this time, Amy was born. Since Matt was born while they were living far away, it was difficult for me to be involved in his life at first. Living with a baby brought immense joy. Not that I loved Matt any less. Witnessing the birth of new life, Matt's eyes sparkled with excitement. Pride in becoming a big brother. The determination to protect his little sister. I could feel these emotions coming from him. Without comparing the two young ones, I vowed to love them both equally. As Amy's upbringing began, Tracy became increasingly harsh toward Matt. Since Amy was her own, born from her womb, it seemed her affection for Amy overshadowed everything else. Postpartum mood swings are common, so I tried to be understanding. It was my role to support Matt in place of Tracy. Despite Tracy's worsening attitude, Matt wanted to believe in the kindness Tracy had shown him before. He tried his best to help out and get her attention. One day, after I returned home from my morning job, I could hear Tracy's loud yelling from outside. "Why can't you do such a simple thing? You've just made more work for me." It seemed she was scolding Matt for accidentally spilling the milk powder meant for Amy. Come now, he was just trying to help. Isn't that enough? I tried to calm Tracy, but she was met with resistance. Just stay out of this. If you want to say something, you clean up this mess. Being scolded by a mother, even if she is not biologically related, can have an immeasurable impact on a child's emotions. The mix of sadness, frustration, and regret. Watching Matt try to hold back his tears and manage a multitude of feelings left me overwhelmed with a sense of helplessness. Grandma will clean this up. You did your best, didn't you? After comforting and calming Matt, I cleaned up the spilled powder. Amy, if you make such a clumsy mistake, it's a no-no for you. Your brother really is useless, isn't he? After giving us a disdainful glance, Tracy turned to speak to Amy, who still doesn't understand words. I struggled to contain my anger towards Tracy, who wouldn't even give Matt a second look. At dinner, noticing Matt's absence, I asked Tracy about him. Where's Matt? I don't know. Maybe he ran away because I scolded him? That simply couldn't be the case. Matt was only 4 years old. Where could he possibly run away to? Just then, Fred came home. Despite raising my concerns to Fred, saying, "I can't find Matt," he nonchalantly replied, "He's a boy, maybe he went to the nearby park or something." Anyway, hi Amy, showing no sign of worry at all. Even for a boy, it was already past 7 p.m. Shouldn't they be worried if he was at the park alone? I left my uneaten meal and rushed outside. I searched the park, the route to kindergarten, and the supermarket, but found no sign of Matt. Maybe he's returned home. With that thought, I headed back, and as I was about to open the front door, I heard a sound like metal being struck coming from the garden. Our garden wasn't very large, but there was a small shed. It seemed the sound was coming from there. I froze, thinking, could it be? No, that's impossible. Approaching cautiously, I heard banging and a faint voice. Matt. Is that you? When I opened the shed door, I found Matt sitting inside, crying. How could they do this? I carried Matt back to confront Tracy and Fred, who looked awkwardly at each other upon seeing my furious expression. What is the meaning of this? While holding a still sobbing Matt, I confronted the two of them. Fred stammered. Well, I just heard about it from Tracy. After glaring sharply at Fred's fumbling response, Tracy, without a hint of remorse, stated, "It's Matt's fault. He ruined Amy's milk." I couldn't believe their reasoning. Just because of a small mistake, they locked a little child in a shed. How could I eat knowing what they had done? I raised my voice. What are you talking about? You're the one who made him do it. Even so, this is too much. Don't you have any sense of responsibility as a mother? At my stern rebuke, Fred stepped in to mediate. Let's calm down a bit, Mom. Tracy is just tired and irritable from taking care of Amy. Please, cut her some slack. If you knew about it, you're just as guilty. Locking a 4-year-old in such a small, dark place. I was too upset to finish my words. I did try to stop her, thinking it was too much. It seemed Fred was trying to place all the blame on Tracy alone, which earned him a glare from her. Before stopping this woman, you should have let Matt out. Are you even his father? With the two of them silenced, I laid down a firm rule. If anything like this happens again, I'll have you both leave this house. But, with Fred in a panic and Tracy looking down, avoiding eye contact, I believed that after saying all this, surely such a thing would never happen again. Thinking this, I paid no further attention to the two of them. Instead, I bathed Matt, fed him a reheated dinner, and tucked him into a warm bed to sleep. During this time, Matt defended his parents desperately. It was my fault for making Mom angry. So, she's not bad. Dad just got back from work and was hungry because he's tired. I felt even more sorry for the brave little Matt. I resolved to keep a closer eye on their behavior. Although there were no apologies from them, I was more concerned about Matt's well-being. Despite the ordeal, Matt continued to help around the house, never losing his smile. Whether it was due to my vigilance or genuine remorse, the severe mistreatment of Matt seemed to cease. Tracy sometimes demanded too much help from Matt or was harsh, but Matt said, "Grandma, I'm okay. I want to be helpful to Mom. Plus, Amy is cute. As her big brother, I need to be strong." He said it so bravely, I couldn't bring myself to say anything. I found it hard to intervene further, fearing that it might worsen Tracy's mood and lead to more harsh treatment of Matt. Contrary to my worries, the attitude of the two towards Matt returned to how it was before Amy was born. It seems peace had returned despite my concerns. Gradually, I also felt relieved and life went back to its usual routine. 2 months had passed since that distressing incident, and peaceful days continued. One day, I was asked by my manager to change my shift. Normally, I only worked in the mornings, but it seemed they couldn't secure enough staff for the evening until closing. Since Matt's incident, I had already been working fewer shifts. And given my inability to refuse requests, I agreed to take on the shift. Though, "Aren't you going to work today, Mother?" Surprised to see me at home during my usual work hours, Tracy struck up a conversation. "There's a shift change today. I'll be working in the evening. So, I'm counting on you for dinner tonight." Tracy visibly showed her annoyance but suddenly brightened up with an idea. "Then, let's have an early birthday party for Amy today." Knowing I would be absent due to work, it seemed I was not invited to the party. I wished to celebrate my granddaughter's first birthday too. I'll need to start preparing for the party right away and let Fred know to come home early. Ignoring my feelings, Tracy was pleased with her plan. "Well then, I'm off to shop, so please watch Amy. Since you can't join the party, you can at least do that much for us." Using shopping as an excuse, Tracy was essentially giving me time alone with Amy. How selfish can one be? Feeling it was too troublesome to argue further, I quickly took Amy from Tracy and sent her off to shop. That evening, after finishing my shift at an unusual time, I was walking home in the dark. The day had been doubly tiring because I had to help Tracy, who had returned from shopping, with preparations for a party I couldn't even attend. But the thought of celebrating Amy's birthday and imagining Matt's happy face kept my spirits up. As I passed by the house, I noticed the lights were still on. Checking the time, it was already past 9 p.m. It was about time to put Matt to bed. I hope she hasn't left me to clean up. Looking towards the house again, I saw a sight that made me doubt my eyes. Matt was sitting alone in the garden, staring into the room. I couldn't understand what was happening. Why was Matt outside? I hurried to the entrance, rushing around to the garden from the side of the gate. Matt. What's wrong? As I approached, Matt looked relieved to see me but then burst into tears the next moment. What happened? Why are you out here all by yourself? Although I knew I shouldn't press him too much, I couldn't help myself. Matt just sobbed and couldn't answer. How about we go inside? He looked at me surprised, as if wanting to say something, and then hesitantly started to speak. Today is Amy's birthday. But they said it's a family-only celebration, and I can't join, he sobbed. How could they? I couldn't bear it any longer and silently pulled Matt by the arm, heading out of the gate. Something that shouldn't have happened, had happened again. What's wrong? Grandma, are you angry? Where are we going? His voice made me snap back to reality. You haven't eaten anything since lunch, right? Grandma is tired from work, and I'm hungry too. Let's go eat something delicious. Trying to sound as cheerful as possible to reassure Matt, he brightened up and responded positively. Taking a child to a diner at this late time. I worried about being judged by others, but no one, not even the staff, seemed to pay us any mind. Leaving Matt at the table, I stood up. I'm going to get some juice. Pretending to head to the drink corner, I took out my phone instead. I wondered, I haven't contacted them in a while, but I wonder if they'll answer. After a few rings, a puzzled voice answered, "Hello?" I introduced myself and said sorry for calling late at night. Then briefly explained the situation Matt was in. The person on the phone said, "I'll come right away," and hung up. Returning to the table, I found Matt munching on the fries he'd ordered. You took a while, huh? As I placed the Coke I'd gotten for him on the table, he looked at me anxiously. I wasn't sure what you'd like to drink, I lied, but Matt quickly brightened up. I love Coke, he declared, eagerly gulping it down. He's only 5. Coming to a diner at this hour, he didn't even fuss. Quietly waiting alone at the table, he even seemed so sensitive about adults' feelings. Why does such a good kid have to? I was so frustrated, all I could do was watch him eat his fries. After finishing his fries, Matt seemed restless. Want to order a hamburger too? I suggested. Matt's expression grew tense as he said, I wonder if we'll get in trouble if we don't go home soon. Even though he said that, we couldn't just go back home yet. I was pondering how to explain this to Matt when a woman entered the diner. She looked toward the entrance, raised her hand at us, and hurried to our table. Matt looked up at her with a questioning expression as she embraced him. Unable to hold back her tears. The woman I had called earlier on the phone was Emma, Matt's biological mother. Mom. Is it really you? Matt seemed to remember her. Fred and Emma divorced when Matt was about 2 years old, 3 years ago. Yet, Matt remembered his real mother, whom he had yearned for when he first came to our house. Emma, too, had never forgotten about Matt for even a moment. As the two calmed down from their emotional reunion, I explained everything to Emma. I told her about Tracy's harsh treatment towards Matt. How he was locked in the shed after spilling milk powder. And how he was excluded from Amy's birthday party today because he was not family. I'm sorry. I should have been more vigilant. No, Diane. You don't have to apologize. You've been protecting Matt, haven't you? And you called me here. I had hesitated to call Emma because Fred had told me she had an affair, leading to their divorce, but she seemed different from what I had imagined. I invited you thinking you're Matt's mother. But I hope I didn't cause any trouble? Do you have a new partner or family? While hesitating and beating around the bush, I tried to clarify. Then Emma raised her voice. I don't have anyone like that. All I needed was Matt. What did she mean by that? I shared what Fred had told me about the divorce. and Emma's face turned pale as she revealed the truth. The truth is, it was Fred and that woman who had an affair. Emma shared the real story while sadly looking at a sleeping Matt. She explained that Fred and Tracy had started their relationship around the time Matt was born. Then, a man claiming to be a lawyer suddenly appeared, accusing Emma of having an affair and neglecting Matt. He presented documents for a divorce, compensation, and child support. Emma, who had no recollection of such actions, had no one to turn to. After losing her parents at a young age and being left all alone in the world, she became estranged from her friends following her marriage to Fred. Being a full-time homemaker and devoted entirely to caring for baby Matt, her outings were limited, and her interactions with neighbors were merely at the level of greetings. In such a situation, with her already sparse social connections, gathering evidence to prove her innocence was challenging. The thought made my head spin. You could have turned to me. But I was so shocked by Fred's betrayal at the time, I even doubted you. Emma seemed regretful for not reaching out. I felt ashamed of my son's actions and regretted not connecting more closely with Emma at the time. I despised myself. I'm truly sorry. And now, are you still paying child support? Yes. I had some money left by my parents, and I was lucky to return to my job before marriage. I've been paying without fail, for Matt's sake. I couldn't bear to hear anymore. Unaware of these circumstances, I had been living comfortably with that couple. I don't even know how to apologize. It's okay, Diane. You've done nothing wrong. And now, I've finally been able to see Matt. That alone makes everything worth it. Emma's expression was serene. By the way, since Fred has custody, haven't you seen Matt at all? I broached the subject that had been bothering me. Emma's expression darkened as she whispered, since the divorce was finalized, not once, until today. What a situation. I couldn't hold back my emotions any longer. Emma. I've made up my mind. The real parents of Matt are not those two, it's only you. I won't let them take Matt away from you ever again. Emma looked at me in surprise. Then, as if strongly agreeing with my resolution, she nodded firmly. Actually, I haven't been doing nothing. She explained that she had already hired a lawyer to address the unjustly demanded child support and to claim compensation from Fred and Tracy. According to the lawyer Emma hired, the lawyer Fred and Tracy had provided turned out to be just a friend, not a legitimate attorney. I'll help too. For Matt's sake. Thus, in the late hours at the diner, Emma and I formed a partnership. 3 months passed, and I continued living as usual, making sure not to let any harm come to Matt. One day, Emma and her lawyer came to our house. Fred and Tracy were taken aback and flustered, but I calmed them down and had them take a seat. What is the reason for your visit today? While Fred was visibly shaken, Tracy tried to appear bold. We're here today to discuss a compensation claim against you and Fred, and to negotiate the transfer of Matt's custody to me. Unwilling to be outdone, Emma also responded with calm composure. Compensation? That must be about you, right? I've heard it from Fred. Tracy mocked the former wife as if she were laughing at her. That makes sense, since you were Fred's affair partner. What nonsense. I met Fred after he divorced you. Fred remained silent, just listening to the exchange between his ex-wife and current wife. Let's all calm down. First, let's hear what the lawyer has to say. Pretending to be unaware of everything, I subtly directed the conversation towards Emma's turn. Please take a look at these documents. He spread out a report that was supposedly from the lawyer Fred and Tracy had arranged for their divorce. This is the report given by Mr. Fred Holmes' lawyer. at the time of his divorce from Ms. Emma Collins. What does such an old document prove? Tracy was clearly flustered. What's wrong with that? I had a proper lawyer. As Fred tried to intervene, Emma's lawyer quickly continued. Was that really a lawyer? Which firm do they belong to? Fred was left speechless. Ignoring Fred's hesitation, the lawyer continued. As a fellow lawyer, I must say, this report lacks credibility. The evidence photos are clearly fabricated. And the testimonies about Ms. Collins neglecting child care are too vague. But that's the evidence that led to their divorce. Tracy desperately clung to her argument. Indeed, Ms. Collins did divorce under those circumstances. However, the demands for child support were excessively high. Despite making regular payments, she hasn't been allowed to see her child, has she? That's because Matt said he didn't want to see her. I screamed internally, that's not true. Thinking back to when Matt first came to our house. How desperately he sought his mother's presence. I was trembling with anger. But she did neglect him, right? Regardless of how vague, we did have testimonies. Regaining some composure, Tracy began to speak. Would you like to see the childcare diary I kept at the time? With that, Emma pulled out a worn letter-sized notebook. The cover read, Matt's childcare diary. Such a thing could easily be filled in afterward. However, as Emma silently flipped through the notebook, the color drained from Tracy's face. The pages were densely filled with detailed records of Matt's feedings, diaper changes, sleep times, and at the end of each day, a brief diary entry from Emma. Messages to Matt filled any available space. Tracy, raising a 1-year-old Amy, should understand. Could someone accused of neglect keep such a meticulous diary? Tracy was speechless. Watching Tracy's reaction, Fred appeared utterly confused. It was clear he had no understanding of proper childcare. In this diary, there are entries about Mr. Holmes' actions as well. Me. Fred looked exhausted. It's about you being late from work or going on business trips. Emma added sarcastically, implying she was well aware. A diary can't reveal an affair. Tracy was right. A diary alone couldn't serve as evidence. That was the hard part. Tracy looked triumphantly at Emma, but then suddenly began to panic. I kept Fred's credit card statements. I found them tucked in our household book after the divorce. Neither Tracy nor Fred had any response. On the days Fred claimed to be on business trips and didn't come home, the credit card statement listed an in. Ignoring the silent pair, Emma smoothly went on. And on the same day, there's a photo posted on a woman's social media. The hashtags include the in's name and secret. That's just a coincidence. It could happen to anyone. Tracy began to flounder. Yes, but this woman, despite her secrets, is flaunting her belongings in the photo. Emma cornered them further. This watch in the photo is yours, isn't it, Fred? Tracy and Fred seemed to freeze. That kind of watch could be anywhere. Oh, so Tracy didn't know. That was a gift from my husband and me to Emma and Fred when they got married. It's a pair watch, completely custom-made. I feigned innocence as I chimed in. That can't be. After a moment of silence. Enough already. Fred spoke in a defeated tone. Emma signaled to the lawyer. Since the person in question has admitted it, this will make things easier. We'll proceed with a settlement rather than taking this to court. I won't admit it. I'll even go to court. Despite Tracy's agitation, the lawyer continued. Let's also discuss the report created by the so-called fake lawyer, who has already shared everything with us after a discussion about a forgery of private documents. That traitor. It turns out the fake lawyer was a friend and former boyfriend of Tracy's. to whom she had been funneling part of Emma's compensation and child support. After discussing the crime of forgery, he was quite willing to share everything. Tracy seemed to have no will to fight left in her. Through the gap in the sliding door, Matt peeked in, asking, "Mom? What's happening?" "It's nothing," Emma responded, her face now clear and relieved. "Let's go home, to your mom's and your new home." Later, instead of settling, it went to court. This time, they hired a real lawyer, but the outcome was clear. Custody of Matt was granted to Emma. Fred and Tracy's past actions were deemed criminal. They were ordered to return the falsely claimed compensation and child support, and to pay compensation and child support to Emma. Following these events, Fred and Tracy blamed each other, ultimately leading to their divorce. Tracy was disowned by her family, and Amy was taken in by her grandparents. Tracy ended up in debt and turned to working in the adult industry, a consequence of her own actions. I cut ties with Fred. Who would take care of a criminal? Having sold the house they lived in, I now live a comfortable life alone. I had no interest in where Fred and Tracy are or what they're doing, though I heard they're still paying Emma. As for Emma, she and Matt occasionally visit me. Our relationship has evolved into something akin to friendship. Interestingly, Emma seemed to have a good rapport with the lawyer from that time. When I visit, I often give her relationship advice. And it seems the lawyer gets along well with Matt too. One day, while Emma was seeking relationship advice from me, Matt suddenly said, "Mom, I love it when you smile. And I'm happiest when you and that man are together." A year has passed since then. Today is the day Emma and Matt are visiting me. Unable to wait, I went down to the entrance of her building to meet them. Soon, I could see the two of them walking towards me. Matt was holding Emma's hand, considerate of her condition. Such a kind boy. I was impressed. "Diane, did you come down to meet us?" "Thank you." "Of course. I was looking forward to it. Besides," I took Emma's bag, glancing at her now visibly larger belly. "You're not just taking care of yourself anymore. I can't wait to meet the baby. Dad's looking forward to it too." Seeing their happy faces, I smiled. Outside, the air was enveloped in the warm embrace of spring.